Hey everyone, tonight we're diving into a day in the life of a medieval inn. Let's jump right into the story. The first light of dawn creeps slowly across the cobblestone courtyard of the Red Boar Inn, painting the weathered stones in shades of amber and gold that seem to whisper of countless mornings just like this one. Inside the timber-framed building, the thick oak beams that have held this place together for generations creak softly as the structure settles into another day. And somewhere in the depths of the kitchen, the first wisps of smoke begin to curl from the great stone hearth, where yesterday's embers still glow like tiny orange jewels waiting to be coaxed back to life. Martha, the innkeeper's wife, stirs in the small chamber above the main hall, her weathered hands already reaching for the rough wool cloak that hangs beside the narrow window. And as her feet touch the cold wooden floor, she can hear the familiar sounds that mark the beginning of each new day at the inn. The soft lowing of the milk cow in the stable yard mingles with the gentle clucking of hens pecking at scattered grain, while somewhere beyond the walls, a rooster announces the arrival of morning with a voice that seems to carry all the authority of a town crier proclaiming news from the king himself. The corridors of the inn hold their own particular silence in these early hours, a kind of hushed expectancy that feels almost sacred, as if the very walls are holding their breath before the day's activities begin in earnest. Martha moves through these familiar spaces with the quiet confidence of someone who has walked these same paths thousands of times before, her soft leather shoes making barely a whisper against the worn wooden boards as she makes her way down the narrow staircase that leads to the main hall below. In the great hearth, she kneels before the dying coals and begins the ancient ritual of bringing fire back to life, feeding small twigs and dried grass to the glowing embers until they catch and crackle with renewed vigor. The flames dance higher, casting long shadows that seem to bring the carved figures on the mantelpiece to life, and soon the warmth begins to spread outward into the cool morning air, chasing away the chill that settled into the room during the long night hours. The kitchen adjoins the main hall, and here Martha begins the careful orchestration of preparing food for the day's guests, her movements economical and practiced, as she measures out portions of oats for the morning porridge and checks the level of ale in the large wooden barrels that line one wall. The familiar weight of the iron ladle in her hand feels comfortable, reassuring even, and as she stirs the thick porridge that will feed both guests and family alike, she finds herself humming an old tune her mother taught her years ago, back when she was just a girl helping in her father's bakery in the village down the river. Outside, her husband Thomas is already moving about the stable yard, checking on the horses that belong to the merchants and travelers who arrived yesterday evening, their journey-weary animals now resting in stalls filled with fresh straw and sweet hay. The largest of these horses, a magnificent bay gelding with white markings on his face, belongs to a wool merchant from the northern counties, a man who has stayed at the Red Boar many times over the years and who always tips generously when his business dealings go well. Thomas runs his hands along the horse's flanks, checking for any signs of injury or lameness that might have developed during the night, and finding nothing amiss, he moves on to fill the water troughs and distribute fresh hay to each stall. The work is routine but important, For the inn's reputation depends not only on the quality of its food and lodging, but also on the care given to the animals that bring travelers to their door. As the sun climbs higher, painting the eastern sky in broader strokes of pink and gold, the first stirrings of life begin to emerge from the guest chambers upstairs. A door creaks open, followed by the sound of heavy footsteps crossing a wooden floor, and soon the wool merchant himself appears at the top of the stairs, his hair tousled from sleep and his fine woolen tunic somewhat wrinkled from the night's rest. He descends slowly, one hand on the carved wooden banister, and nods politely to Martha as she emerges from the kitchen carrying a steaming bowl of porridge topped with honey and dried apples. The merchant takes his place at one of the long wooden tables that dominate the main hall, and as he breaks his fast, he speaks quietly with Thomas about the condition of the roads ahead, seeking advice about which route might prove safest for a man traveling alone with a cart full of valuable goods. The conversation flows easily between them, touching on topics both practical and philosophical, from the recent rains that have turned certain stretches of road into muddy quagmires, to the political situation in the distant capital, where rumors speak of new taxes being levied on merchants and craftsmen alike. These are the kinds of discussions that happen naturally in a place like the Red Boar, where travelers from different regions gather around the same tables and share not only meals, but also news, gossip, and the accumulated wisdom that comes from spending one's life on the road. Soon other guests begin to emerge from their chambers, each following their own morning ritual of washing, dressing, and preparing for another day of travel. There is a young monk making his way to a distant monastery, his brown robe simple but well-maintained, his manner quiet and contemplative as he joins the others at the communal table. Beside him sits a tinker whose pack bulges with small metal goods, knives, buckles, needles, and other essential items that rural folk depend upon but cannot easily make for themselves. The tinker's weathered face tells stories of countless miles walked and countless villages visited, and as he eats his porridge, he regales the other guests with tales of his recent travels, speaking of a village where he witnessed a wedding celebration that lasted 3 full days, complete with musicians, dancers, and enough food to feed half the county. His voice carries the easy confidence of a natural storyteller, and even Martha finds herself pausing in her work to listen as he describes the elaborate feast that followed the ceremony. From the kitchen comes the rich aroma of bread baking in the stone oven, loaves that Martha shaped and kneaded before dawn, their crusts now turning golden brown in the intense heat. The smell seems to awaken something primal in the guests, a deep satisfaction that comes from the promise of fresh bread still warm from the oven, and more than one person comments on how the scent alone makes the modest inn feel like a home away from home. As the morning progresses, new travelers begin to arrive, their horses' hooves clattering against the cobblestones as they enter the courtyard. Thomas emerges from the stables to greet them, offering to care for their animals, while Martha appears in the doorway to welcome them with the practiced hospitality that has made the Red Boar a favored stopping place for those traveling this particular stretch of road. Among the new arrivals is a family group, a merchant, his wife, and two young children who cling shyly to their mother's skirts as they take in the unfamiliar surroundings. The merchant explains that they are traveling to the great fair that takes place each autumn in the market town, 2 days' ride to the south, where he hopes to sell a cartload of fine pottery crafted by the artisans in his home village. The children's eyes grow wide as they enter the main hall, taking in the carved beams overhead, the colorful tapestries that hang on the walls, and the great stone fireplace where flames dance and flicker with hypnotic beauty. Martha smiles at their wonder and offers them each a small honey cake, watching as their shyness gradually gives way to the natural curiosity of youth. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, preparations continue for the midday meal, which will need to accommodate not only the inn's overnight guests, but also any travelers who might stop for refreshment during the busiest part of the day. Martha works alongside her daughter Sarah, a girl of 16 whose quick hands and keen mind have already mastered many of the skills needed to run an inn successfully. Together, they prepare a hearty stew made from mutton, root vegetables, and herbs from the small garden that flourishes behind the kitchen, its ingredients simmering slowly in a large iron pot suspended over the fire. The smell of the cooking meat mingles with the aroma of fresh bread and the earthy scent of ale, creating an atmosphere of warmth and abundance that seems to wrap itself around everyone who enters the inn like a comfortable blanket. Sarah moves between the kitchen and the main hall, serving ale to the guests and ensuring that everyone has what they need to make their stay pleasant and memorable. Her cheerful manner and genuine interest in the travelers' stories have already earned her several admirers among the young men who frequent the inn, though she remains focused on her duties and shows no sign of being distracted by their attention. As the sun reaches its zenith, the inn bustles with activity, voices blending together in a comfortable murmur of conversation that speaks of people at ease in each other's company despite being strangers brought together only by the accidents of travel and timing. The wool merchant discusses business matters with the pottery seller, comparing notes on market conditions and the reliability of various routes, while the tinker entertains the children with simple magic tricks that make coins appear and disappear with practiced sleight of hand. The young monk sits somewhat apart, not unfriendly, but maintaining the contemplative distance that his calling requires, though he listens with obvious interest to the conversations swirling around him. Occasionally, he contributes a thoughtful observation or asks a gentle question that reveals his own considerable knowledge of the world beyond monastery walls, for his order requires its members to travel extensively in service to their communities. Outside, the stable yard has become a hub of activity as more travelers arrive throughout the morning and early afternoon. Thomas and his young apprentice, a boy named Will whose own father died the previous winter, work steadily to care for the growing number of horses and mules that fill the available stalls. Each animal requires individual attention, fresh water, good hay, and a careful examination to ensure that the rigors of travel have not caused any injuries that need tending. Will moves among the animals with the confident ease of someone who has spent his entire life around horses and livestock, speaking to them in the gentle tones that experienced handlers know will calm even the most nervous or temperamental beast. His own small pony, a sturdy gray mare named Mist, watches from her stall as he works, occasionally nickering softly as if offering encouragement or simply acknowledging his presence. The afternoon brings its own rhythm to life at the Red Boar, as guests who have finished their meals either retire to their chambers for rest or gather in small groups to continue conversations that began over the morning's porridge and have now evolved into deeper discussions of trade, politics, religion, and the countless other topics that occupy the minds of people who spend their lives traveling from place to place. Martha takes advantage of this quieter period to attend to some of the countless small tasks that keep an inn running smoothly, mending a torn tapestry, replacing rushes on the floor, checking the supply of candles and lamp oil that will be needed once darkness falls. These mundane activities provide their own satisfaction, the quiet pleasure that comes from maintaining order and comfort in a world that often seems chaotic and unpredictable. Sarah helps with these tasks while also keeping an eye on the guests, ready to provide whatever small services might be needed to ensure their comfort and satisfaction. She refills ale cups, brings additional blankets to those who complain of drafts, and listens patiently to the stories and complaints that travelers seem compelled to share with anyone willing to lend an ear. In the kitchen, preparations begin for the evening meal, which traditionally represents the high point of the day's hospitality at any respectable inn. Martha checks her supplies carefully, planning a menu that will showcase the best of what the Red Boar has to offer while making efficient use of available ingredients and staying within the bounds of what most travelers can reasonably afford to pay. Tonight's menu will feature the mutton stew that has been simmering since morning, now rich and aromatic with long, slow cooking, accompanied by fresh bread, a selection of local cheeses, and ale drawn from the inn's own barrels. For those willing to pay a premium, there will also be roasted fowl and chickens from the inn's own flock, seasoned with herbs and cooked to tender perfection over the open fire. As afternoon shadows begin to lengthen, new arrivals continue to appear in the courtyard, their timing calculated to reach the inn with enough daylight remaining to settle their animals and secure lodging for the night ahead. Among these late arrivals is a group of pilgrims returning from a shrine dedicated to a saint renowned for healing the afflictions of travelers, their faces bearing the peaceful expressions of people who have found what they were seeking on their spiritual journey. The pilgrims carry walking staves carved with religious symbols and wear the simple brown robes that mark them as members of a lay religious order dedicated to serving the poor and sick in communities throughout the region. Their leader, an elderly woman whose lined face radiates both wisdom and compassion, speaks quietly with Martha about accommodations, explaining that while they have little money to spend on luxury, they are willing to work for their keep if necessary. Martha, whose own faith runs deep despite the practical demands of innkeeping, immediately assures the pilgrims that they are welcome at the Red Boar, and that payment can be arranged according to their means, rather than according to any rigid schedule of fees. This generosity reflects not only her personal values, but also the practical recognition that treating travelers well, regardless of their economic circumstances, ultimately benefits the inn's reputation and long-term prosperity. The main hall gradually fills with the evening's company as guests gather for the communal meal that represents the social heart of inn life throughout the medieval world. Long wooden tables become the center of animated conversations as people from vastly different backgrounds find themselves sharing food, drink, and stories under the same roof, creating temporary communities that will dissolve with the morning's departures but leave lasting memories in the minds of all who participate. The wool merchant finds himself deep in conversation with one of the pilgrims, a former soldier who has devoted his remaining years to serving others as penance for the violence he witnessed and participated in during his younger days. Their discussion touches on questions of morality, redemption, and the proper way to live in a world where survival often seems to require choices that conflict with higher principles. Meanwhile, the pottery merchant's children have overcome their initial shyness and now listen with rapt attention as the tinker continues his storytelling, weaving tales of distant lands, strange customs, and remarkable people he has encountered during his years on the road. His voice rises and falls with practiced skill, drawing his audience deeper into narratives that transport them far beyond the familiar walls of the Red Boar to places where different rules apply and different possibilities exist. Sarah moves among the tables with practiced grace, ensuring that ale cups remain full and that everyone has sufficient bread to accompany their stew, while also contributing to conversations with the easy confidence of someone who has heard countless stories from countless travelers and learned to find something interesting in each new person who passes through the inn's doors. The young monk, who earlier seemed somewhat withdrawn, now engages more freely in the general conversation, his theological training providing a unique perspective on the moral and philosophical questions that naturally arise when people from different walks of life gather together in circumstances that encourage honest reflection and open discussion. As full darkness settles over the countryside, the inn's interior grows warmer and more intimate, illuminated by the dancing flames in the great fireplace and the softer glow of oil lamps and candles strategically placed throughout the main hall. Outside, the night sounds of the medieval world create a backdrop of distant owl calls, the rustle of wind through trees, and the occasional bark of a dog responding to some sound or scent that human senses cannot detect. The evening meal extends naturally into a period of entertainment and relaxation, as guests settle back in their chairs with final cups of ale, and someone produces a small wooden flute that fills the hall with gentle melodies from the folk tradition that forms the common musical heritage of people throughout the region. The tunes are familiar enough that others begin to hum along, and soon a kind of informal chorus develops, voices blending together in harmonies that seem to express something essential about the human need for connection and community. Martha and Thomas exchanged satisfied glances as they observe their guests enjoying themselves, recognizing that evenings like this one represent the true success of their life's work, not merely providing food and shelter to travelers, but creating spaces where strangers can become temporary friends, and where the isolation that characterizes so much of medieval life can be temporarily set aside in favor of warmth, companionship, and shared humanity. The pottery merchant's wife, who had seemed tired and somewhat overwhelmed when the family first arrived, now appears relaxed and content as she watches her children's faces glow with delight at the music and stories flowing around them. This journey, undertaken primarily for commercial reasons, has already provided her family with experiences and memories that will enrich their lives long after the pottery has been sold and the profits counted. As the evening progresses, some guests begin to retire to their chambers, the day's travel and the warmth of good food and drink combining to produce the drowsiness that signals bedtime's approach. Others remain in the main hall, reluctant to break the spell of companionship and conversation that has developed over the course of the evening, knowing that tomorrow will bring separations and the resumption of individual journeys toward different destinations. The pilgrims gather in a corner of the hall for their evening prayers, their voices joining together in ancient Latin phrases that speak of gratitude, hope, and submission to divine will. Other guests pause in their conversations to listen respectfully, recognizing something sacred in the ritual even if they do not fully understand the words or share the specific beliefs that inspire them. Martha begins the process of banking the fire for the night, ensuring that enough coals will remain glowing until morning to provide both warmth and the means to quickly restart the flames when the new day begins. This simple task connects her to countless generations of innkeepers who have performed the same ritual in inns throughout the medieval world, each one contributing their small part to the vast network of hospitality that makes travel and trade possible across the European continent. Sarah helps clear the tables and wash the wooden bowls and pewter cups that have served the evening's meal, her movements efficient but unhurried as she savors these final moments of the day's social activity. Tomorrow will bring new guests and new stories, but tonight belongs to the particular combination of people who have found their way to the Red Boar on this specific evening, creating a temporary community that exists only once and can never be exactly duplicated. The tinker, whose stories have provided so much entertainment throughout the evening, now begins to prepare his pack for tomorrow's departure, carefully wrapping his various wares in scraps of cloth and leather to protect them during transport. His route will take him to 3 more villages before the week's end, and at each stop, he will once again become both merchant and entertainer, sharing news and stories while selling the small metal goods that rural communities depend upon. Outside, Thomas makes his final rounds of the stable yard, checking to ensure that all the animals are secure and comfortable for the night ahead. The wool merchant's bay gelding whickers softly as he approaches, and Thomas pauses to stroke the animal's neck while mentally reviewing the tasks that will need attention first thing in the morning. The night watchman, an elderly man named Peter who has served the inn faithfully for more than 20 years, takes up his position near the main entrance, prepared to spend the dark hours ensuring that both guests and property remain safe from the various dangers that darkness can bring to unwary travelers in medieval times. His presence provides reassurance to everyone sleeping under the Red Boar's roof, knowing that experienced eyes and ears will remain alert while they rest. One by one, the remaining guests make their way upstairs to their chambers, carrying small oil lamps to light their way through corridors that grow darker as they move away from the main hall's central hearth. The wooden stairs creak softly under their feet, and doors close quietly as the inn settles into the peaceful rhythm that characterizes the night hours in any well-run establishment. Martha and Thomas perform their own bedtime ritual, checking to ensure that all fires are properly banked, All doors are secure, and all necessary preparations have been made for tomorrow's activities. These final tasks of the day require little conscious thought, representing habits developed over years of innkeeping experience, but they provide their own satisfaction as markers of another successful day in the life of the Red Boar. In their small chamber above the main hall, Martha lies awake for a few minutes listening to the familiar sounds of the inn settling into quietude, the soft creak of timber, the whisper of wind around the building's corners, the distant sound of Peter's footsteps as he makes his rounds of the courtyard. These sounds form the lullaby that has accompanied her sleep for more than 15 years, as comforting and reliable as a mother's voice singing to a child. But even as the inn grows quiet and its inhabitants surrender to sleep, the building itself continues its ancient function as a beacon of hospitality, in a world where safe lodging can mean the difference between life and death for travelers caught by darkness, weather, or misfortune. The Red Boar stands ready to welcome anyone who might appear at its gates seeking shelter, regardless of the hour or the circumstances that drive them to its door. The oil lamp in the main hall burns low but continues to cast its gentle circle of light into the darkness, a symbol of the warmth and welcome that define the inn's essential character. Outside, the medieval night continues its timeless cycle, filled with the sounds and movements of a world that never completely sleeps, even in the darkest hours before dawn. Tomorrow will bring its own challenges and opportunities, new guests with their own needs and stories, new problems to solve, new moments of satisfaction when hospitality successfully provided creates the conditions for human connection and mutual aid. But tonight, the Red Boar rests in the quiet satisfaction of another day well lived, another small contribution made to the great enterprise of civilization that depends on countless individual acts of service and care. The inn's success cannot be measured merely in terms of profit and loss, though economic considerations certainly matter in a world where survival often depends on careful management of limited resources. More importantly, places like the Red Boar serve as crucial links in the social fabric that holds medieval society together, providing not just food and shelter, but also news, entertainment, companionship, and the subtle but essential recognition that individual human lives have value and deserve respect regardless of social status or economic circumstances. Each guest who has spent this evening at the inn will carry forward memories and experiences that enrich their understanding of the world and their place within it, while also carrying news and stories that will be shared at future stops along their various journeys. In this way, inns like the Red Boar function as informal centers of communication and cultural exchange, facilitating the spread of ideas, information, and innovation throughout the medieval world in ways that formal institutions often cannot match. Martha's final thoughts before sleep focus on the satisfaction that comes from work well done and service freely given, recognizing that her life's calling involves something much more significant than simply providing commercial services to paying customers. She and Thomas have created a place where strangers can become friends, where travelers can find not just physical comfort, but also the emotional nourishment that comes from belonging, however temporarily, to a community that values kindness and mutual support. The wool merchant sleeps soundly in his chamber, his dreams filled with images of successful negotiations and profitable transactions awaiting him at his destination, while also incorporating the warmth and fellowship he has experienced during his stay at the Red Boar. When he returns along this route in future months, he will look forward to renewing his acquaintance with Thomas and Martha, adding another chapter to the ongoing story of his relationship with this particular inn and its people. The young monk's prayers before sleep include expressions of gratitude for the day's experiences and the reminder that even the simplest journey can provide opportunities for spiritual growth and service to others. His theological training has taught him to look for signs of divine presence in everyday encounters, and his evening at the Red Boar has provided abundant evidence that grace can be found in the most ordinary circumstances when people choose to treat each other with dignity and compassion. The pottery merchant and his family sleep peacefully in their shared chamber, their children's dreams populated by the stories and songs they have heard throughout the evening, while their parents rest with the confidence that comes from knowing they have chosen their route wisely and found reliable hospitality along the way. Tomorrow's travel will be easier to face after the restoration that comes from good food, comfortable lodging, and pleasant company. Even the pilgrims, despite their commitment to lives of simplicity and self-denial, sleep with gratitude for the generous welcome they have received, and the reminder that their spiritual journey benefits not only from formal religious observances, but also from encounters with ordinary people whose daily lives demonstrate the practical application of Christian principles of hospitality and service. The tinker's sleep carries him through dreams of future destinations and the endless variety of people and places that await discovery along the roads he has chosen to make his home. His nomadic life sometimes involves loneliness and hardship, but evenings like this one remind him why he has chosen freedom and adventure over the security and routine that characterize more settled ways of life. As the night progresses and the various sleepers pass through their individual cycles of rest and dreaming, the Red Boar itself continues to provide shelter and protection, its sturdy walls and tight roof standing firm against whatever weather conditions the night might bring. The building embodies the accumulated wisdom of generations of craftsmen who understood how to create structures capable of withstanding both time and the elements, while providing the comfort and functionality required by their intended purposes. Peter the night watchman makes his regular rounds with the careful attention that experience has taught him to maintain regardless of how quiet and peaceful conditions might appear. His years of service have taught him that vigilance represents the price of safety in a world where dangers can appear suddenly and without warning, whether in the form of thieves seeking easy targets, fires that can start from carelessly tended flames, or wild animals driven by hunger or weather to venture closer to human habitation than usual prudence would normally allow. The hours between midnight and dawn traditionally represent the deepest part of sleep for most people, when the body's natural rhythms promote the kind of profound rest that restores both physical strength and mental clarity after the day's activities and challenges. In their various chambers throughout the inn, guests experience this restorative process, while remaining safely protected from the darkness and uncertainty that characterize the world beyond the Red Boar's walls. But even in sleep, the inn continues to function as a complex social organism, its various inhabitants connected by invisible threads of mutual dependence and shared purpose that will become visible again when morning light returns to wake them to another day of travel, work, and human interaction. The relationships formed during their brief time together will influence their future choices and attitudes in ways that neither they nor anyone else can fully predict or understand. Martha stirs briefly in the deepest part of the night, responding to some small sound or movement that penetrates her sleeping consciousness. But finding nothing that requires immediate attention, she settles back into rest with the confidence that comes from years of experience, managing the countless small details that keep an inn operating smoothly and safely throughout the 24-hour cycle of each day. Her dreams weave together memories of past guests and anticipations of future challenges, creating narratives that help her mind process the emotional and practical complexities of innkeeping life, while also providing the creative inspiration that keeps her work from becoming merely routine. Each new day brings unique situations that require improvisation and adaptation, qualities that can only be maintained through the kind of mental flexibility that adequate rest and relaxation help to preserve. Thomas sleeps more deeply, his physical exhaustion from the day's labor combining with natural temperament to produce the kind of profound rest that allows complete recovery from exertion, while preparing the body and mind for whatever demands tomorrow might present. His dreams focus primarily on practical matters: animals to be cared for, equipment to be repaired, supplies to be ordered. But they also include images of satisfaction and accomplishment that reflect his genuine pride in work well done and service faithfully provided. The stable yard itself sleeps fitfully, filled with the soft sounds of animals shifting position, breathing deeply, or occasionally nickering in response to dreams that perhaps carry them back to green pastures or familiar barns in their home territories. Each animal represents not just a means of transportation, but also a significant investment for its owner, deserving of care and attention that extends beyond mere utilitarian considerations to include recognition of their individual personalities and needs. While the apprentice sleeps the deep, dreamless sleep of youth, his growing body requiring extensive rest to fuel the physical development and skill acquisition that characterize his stage of life. Tomorrow will bring new lessons in animal husbandry and stable management, adding to the foundation of knowledge that will eventually allow him to pursue his own career in service to travelers and their animals. His small pony Miss dozes standing in her stall, one leg relaxed and head lowered in the posture that horses adopt when they feel completely safe and secure in their surroundings. Her presence provides comfort and companionship to the other animals in the stable, demonstrating the social bonds that exist even among domesticated creatures whose primary relationship is with the humans who depend upon them for transportation and labor. As the night reaches its deepest point, around the third hour after midnight, the inn settles into the profound quietude that precedes dawn, when even the most restless sleepers find peace, and the building itself seems to rest from the day's activities. This is the hour when medieval people believed that the boundary between the physical and spiritual worlds grew thinnest, allowing for dreams and visions that might carry messages or insights unavailable during the bright clarity of daylight hours. The main hall, empty now except for Peter's occasional presence during his rounds, maintains its welcoming atmosphere even in darkness. The banked coals in the great fireplace continuing to radiate gentle warmth, while the familiar arrangement of tables, chairs, and decorative elements creates an environment that will quickly come alive again when morning brings the return of human activity and conversation. The kitchen stands ready for tomorrow's work, its surfaces clean and its equipment properly arranged for efficient food preparation, while the pantry holds adequate supplies of grain, preserved meat, cheese, and ale to meet the anticipated needs of both current guests and any new arrivals who might appear during the coming day. Martha's careful planning and inventory management ensure that the inn can maintain consistent quality and service, regardless of fluctuations in the number of guests or unexpected demands on its resources. Upstairs, the guest chambers provide their occupants with privacy, comfort, and security, each room furnished with the essential elements needed for rest and personal care, while also reflecting the inn's commitment to hospitality and attention to detail. Clean straw mattresses, warm wool blankets, and sturdy furniture create environments where travelers can truly relax and recover from the physical and emotional stresses that accompany journeys through the medieval world. The building's construction demonstrates the accumulated knowledge of generations of carpenters, masons, and other craftsmen who understood how to create structures that could serve their intended purposes effectively, while also lasting for decades or even centuries with proper maintenance and care. Every beam, stone, and joint represents decisions made by skilled workers who took pride in their ability to solve practical problems while also creating aesthetically pleasing results. Outside, the medieval night continues its ancient rhythms, filled with the sounds and movements of a world that operates according to natural cycles, largely unmodified by human intervention. Owls hunt through the darkness, their silent flight and acute senses allowing them to locate prey that remains invisible to human perception, while other nocturnal creatures pursue their own survival activities according to patterns established over countless generations. The roads that converge near the Red Boar stretch away into darkness, connecting the inn to distant markets, monasteries, manor houses, and villages where other people sleep in their own beds, dream their own dreams, and prepare for their own versions of tomorrow's challenges and opportunities. These roads represent more than mere transportation routes. They form the arteries through which the lifeblood of medieval civilization flows, carrying goods, ideas, news, and people in patterns of movement that create the complex web of relationships holding society together. Some travelers sleep rough along these roads tonight, lacking either the resources or the luck necessary to reach safe lodging before darkness fell, and their more precarious circumstances serve as reminders of the value and importance of places like the Red Boar that provide security and comfort to those fortunate enough to find them. The contrast between safety and danger, warmth and cold, Companionship and isolation helps define the essential character of inn life and explains why successful innkeepers like Martha and Thomas earn not just payment, but also genuine gratitude from their guests. As the night gradually moves toward its end, and the first hints of dawn begin to appear in the eastern sky, the inn prepares unconsciously for another day's activities, its sleeping inhabitants beginning to stir as their bodies respond to subtle changes in temperature, light, and atmospheric conditions that signal the approaching transition from night to day. This natural rhythm has governed human life since the beginning of time, and even the artificial environments created by human ingenuity cannot completely override its influence on consciousness and behavior. Peter completes his final round of the night, checking once more to ensure that all gates are secure, all fires are safely banked, and all guests and animals remain safe and comfortable in their respective quarters. His long experience has taught him that vigilance must be maintained until the very end of his watch, since dangers can appear at any time, and effective security depends on consistent attention to duty rather than assumptions about what might or might not happen during apparently quiet periods. The approaching dawn brings both opportunity and responsibility, marking the beginning of another day in the endless cycle of service and hospitality that defines life at the Red Boar Inn. Martha will soon wake to begin another round of cooking, cleaning, and welcoming, while Thomas will return to the stable yard to care for the animals and assist guests in preparing for their onward journeys. But more than routine work awaits them with the new day. There will also be new people to meet, new stories to hear, new opportunities to provide the kind of service that makes the difference between mere commercial transaction and genuine human connection. Each day brings its own unique combination of challenges and rewards, ensuring that inn life never becomes completely predictable or routine despite the recurring patterns that provide structure and stability. The guests sleeping peacefully in their chambers will wake to face their own versions of opportunity and challenge. Some continuing journeys that will take them to distant destinations where business, family, or spiritual concerns await their attention. Others perhaps deciding to extend their stays if circumstances permit. An inclination suggests that additional rest would be beneficial before resuming travel. Sarah will play her part in the day's activities, her youthful energy and natural friendliness contributing to the atmosphere of welcome and service that attracts travelers to choose the Red Boar over other available accommodations in the region. Her growing skills and increasing confidence suggest that she will someday be capable of managing her own inn, carrying forward the traditions of hospitality and care that her parents have taught her through daily example rather than formal instruction. Young will continue his apprenticeship in the practical arts of animal care and stable management, each day adding to his store of knowledge about the needs and behaviors of the horses, mules, and oxen that provide transportation and labor in the medieval world. His relationship with his own pony Mist demonstrates the kind of understanding and compassion that characterizes the best animal handlers, suggesting that his future career will benefit both the animals under his care and the people who depend upon their services. The various guests will take away from their stay at the Red Boar not only the immediate benefits of food, shelter, and rest, but also memories and impressions that will influence their future choices and attitudes toward the people and places they encounter in their ongoing journeys through life. The wool merchant will remember Thomas's expert advice about road conditions and route selection, while the pottery merchant's children will carry forward the stories and songs they heard during their evening in the main hall. The young monk will incorporate his observations of in-life into his understanding of how ordinary people apply religious principles in their daily work and relationships, while the pilgrims will remember Martha's generosity as an example of the kind of practical charity that their faith calls them to practice in their own service to others. Even the tinker, whose nomadic lifestyle might suggest a casual attitude toward human connections, will treasure the evening's companionship as one of the highlights of his current journey. These individual impacts combine to create a larger influence that extends far beyond the physical boundaries of the inn itself, as each person who has experienced the Red Boar's hospitality carries something of its spirit forward into the wider world, creating ripple effects that spread through communities and relationships in ways that no one can fully track or measure, but that nevertheless contribute to the gradual improvement of human civilization through countless small acts of kindness and understanding. The inn functions as more than a business enterprise or even a social institution. It serves as a kind of laboratory where different approaches to living and working are tested through daily interaction, where people from various backgrounds learn from each other through shared experiences, and where the fundamental human capacities for cooperation, generosity, and mutual aid are strengthened through practice and example. Martha's management style demonstrates how authority can be exercised with both firmness and compassion, creating an environment where necessary tasks are completed efficiently, while also maintaining the kind of atmosphere that encourages guests to feel genuinely welcome, rather than merely tolerated as sources of income. Her ability to balance practical requirements with emotional sensitivity reflects years of experience dealing with people under circumstances that reveal both their best and worst qualities. Thomas exemplifies the skilled craftsman whose expertise extends beyond technical knowledge to include understanding of how his work contributes to larger purposes, recognizing that caring properly for travelers' animals represents not just professional competence, but also stewardship of resources that enable trade, communication, and cultural exchange throughout the medieval world. His quiet pride in work well done inspires similar attitudes in his apprentice and sets standards that influence everyone associated with the inn. The success of establishments like the Red Boar depends not only on the competence and dedication of their primary operators, but also on their ability to attract and retain supporting staff, whose own commitment to service excellence helps create the consistent quality that builds reputation and encourages repeat business from travelers who have choices about where to spend their money and time. Peter the night watchman represents the kind of faithful service that often goes unrecognized, but provides essential foundation for everything else that happens at the inn. His vigilance and reliability allowing guests to sleep peacefully and enabling Martha and Thomas to focus their own energies on the more visible aspects of hospitality and customer service that directly influence visitors' impressions and satisfaction. Sarah and Will embody the next generation of service professionals, their enthusiasm and developing skills suggesting that the traditions of hospitality and care that characterize the Red Boar will continue beyond the current management's tenure, adapted to changing conditions and new challenges, but maintaining the essential commitment to treating travelers as honored guests rather than mere commercial opportunities. As dawn finally breaks over the inn and its surroundings, painting the courtyard stones with fresh golden light and awakening the roosters to their daily proclamation of morning's arrival, the cycle begins anew with familiar rituals of fire lighting, animal care, food preparation, and the gradual stirring of guests who must soon make decisions about whether to continue their journeys or extend their stays for another day of rest and recuperation. Martha rises from her bed with the practiced efficiency of someone whose internal clock has been calibrated by years of early mornings, her first thoughts turning immediately to the tasks that must be completed before the inn's guests emerge from their chambers, expecting the kind of prompt, cheerful service that distinguishes superior establishments from merely adequate ones. The transition from sleep to full alertness happens quickly, aided by the familiar comfort of routine and the satisfaction that comes from knowing exactly what needs to be done and how to do it well. The kitchen fire catches easily this morning, the carefully banked coals from yesterday evening, providing the perfect foundation for rebuilding flames that will soon heat the ovens and cooking surfaces needed to prepare another day's meals. The familiar crackle of burning wood and the gradually increasing warmth spreading through the room provide their own form of morning prayer, marking the successful transition from night's rest to day's activity, while also symbolizing the inn's fundamental purpose of providing comfort and sustenance to anyone who seeks its services. Thomas appears in the stable yard before full daylight, his own internal rhythms attuned to the needs of the animals under his care, knowing that horses and mules wake early and benefit from prompt attention to their basic needs for fresh water, good hay, and the kind of human contact that reassures them of their safety and value. The sounds of his movement and voice calling gentle greetings to individual animals create the soundtrack for the inn's awakening, a familiar symphony that guests often mention as one of their most pleasant memories of their stay. The wool merchant stirs in his chamber as the first light penetrates the small window, his mind immediately turning to the day ahead and the decisions he must make about route selection, timing, and the various practical matters that occupy the thoughts of anyone whose livelihood depends on successful travel through territory where conditions can change rapidly and unpredictably. His years of experience have taught him to value places like the Red Boar not just for their immediate comfort, but also for the reliable information and advice that knowledgeable innkeepers can provide to help travelers make wise choices about their onward journeys. The pottery merchant and his family wake more slowly, their travel schedule less demanding than that of more experienced road goers, allowing them the luxury of a more gradual transition from sleep to activity, while still maintaining the generally early hours that characterize life in a world where artificial lighting remains expensive and work rhythms follow natural cycles of daylight and darkness. The children's excitement about continuing their journey toward the great fair mingles with some reluctance to leave the comfortable security they have found at the inn. Young Sarah moves through the inn's corridors with quiet efficiency, checking to ensure that all is ready for the guests' morning needs, while also beginning the daily tasks of cleaning, organizing, and preparation that maintain the standards of cleanliness and order that distinguish the Red Boar from less carefully managed establishments. Her growing expertise in these matters reflects not just training, but also genuine pride in being part of an enterprise that serves important social functions, while also providing economic security for her family. The pilgrims wake to their own schedule of morning prayers and spiritual preparation, their day beginning with formal acknowledgement of divine providence and expressing gratitude for the safety and comfort they have enjoyed during their night's rest. Their quiet devotions add another dimension to the inn's morning atmosphere, reminding other guests of the spiritual aspects of travel that often become overshadowed by practical concerns, but that remain important elements of the medieval worldview. In the kitchen, Martha begins the careful orchestration of breakfast preparation, her movements economical and purposeful as she measures ingredients, stokes fires, and arranges equipment according to routines refined through years of feeding hungry travelers who expect prompt service, adequate portions, and flavors that provide genuine satisfaction rather than mere sustenance. The morning meal sets the tone for guests' entire day, making its quality and presentation matters of considerable importance for any inn that hopes to build lasting reputation and customer loyalty. The tinker wakes with the natural alertness of someone whose lifestyle requires constant attention to security and opportunity, his possessions packed, and his mind already focused on the day's travel and the villages where he hopes to find customers for his various wares. His pack represents both his livelihood and his entire worldly wealth, making its careful management and protection matters of vital concern that influence every aspect of his daily routine and decision-making process. Outside the inn's walls, the medieval morning reveals itself in all its complexity and beauty, from the mist rising off distant fields to the smoke curling from cottage chimneys, where other families begin their own daily routines of work, worship, and survival. The Red Boar occupies its place in this larger landscape as both physical landmark and social institution, its presence contributing to the network of services and relationships that make organized life possible in a world where individual self-sufficiency remains impossible for all but the most isolated and primitive communities. The roads that connect the inn to distant destinations begin to show signs of early morning traffic as other travelers start their daily journeys, some heading toward the Red Boar for their own experience of its hospitality, while others pass by on different routes that will take them to different destinations, where they will encounter their own versions of the challenges and opportunities that characterize life in constant motion through unfamiliar territory. Will emerges from his small sleeping alcove above the stables, immediately checking on his pony Mist before turning his attention to the other animals that require morning care. His young hands already skilled in the techniques of grooming, feeding, and general animal husbandry that represent essential services in a world where transportation depends entirely on the health and cooperation of domesticated creatures, whose needs must be understood and respected by anyone who hopes to benefit from their labor. The main hall of the inn stands ready for another day's activities, its tables and benches arranged to accommodate whatever combination of guests might gather for meals and conversation, while the great fireplace radiates gentle warmth that makes the space immediately welcoming to anyone entering from the cool morning air outside. The familiar arrangement of furnishings and decorations creates an atmosphere of stability and comfort that helps nervous or tired travelers relax and feel secure in their temporary refuge from the uncertainties of the road. Peter concludes his night watch with the satisfaction that comes from duty faithfully performed and responsibility conscientiously discharged, his vigilant presence throughout the dark hours having contributed to the peaceful rest enjoyed by everyone sleeping under the inn's roof. His transition from night guardian to day laborer happens gradually, as his replacement takes over security duties, and he turns his attention to maintenance tasks and general assistance that help keep the establishment running smoothly throughout the daylight hours. As the sun climbs higher and morning activities gain momentum, the inn transforms from the quiet refuge of night to the bustling center of activity that characterizes its daytime personality, with guests emerging from their chambers to break their fast, discuss their travel plans, and make final preparations for departure or decisions about extending their stays depending on their individual circumstances and preferences. The wool merchant appears in the main hall dressed for travel, his pack arranged, and his manner indicating readiness to resume his journey toward the markets where he hopes to conduct profitable business, while also gathering information about conditions and opportunities that might influence his future commercial activities. His experience has taught him that success in trade depends not only on having quality goods to sell, but also on maintaining accurate knowledge of changing market conditions and customer preferences. Martha greets him with the professional warmth that characterizes her interaction with all guests, providing information about road conditions based on reports from recent travelers, while also ensuring that he has access to a substantial breakfast that will sustain him through the morning's travel until he reaches his next planned stopping point. Her ability to balance personal attention with efficient service reflects the management skills that have made the Red Boar a preferred destination for discriminating travelers who have choices about where to spend their money. The pottery merchant's family appears more gradually, the children still somewhat sleepy, and the parents taking time to organize their belongings and confirm their planned route with Thomas, whose knowledge of local conditions and alternative paths can prove invaluable for travelers whose experience with particular territories remains limited. The friendly advice freely given by experienced innkeepers often proves more valuable than any commercial service they provide, creating goodwill that encourages return visits and positive recommendations to other potential customers. Thomas demonstrates his expertise by examining the merchant's cart and discussing the relative merits of different routes, taking into account current weather conditions, recent road maintenance activities, and reports about bandit activity or other security concerns that might influence travel safety. His recommendations reflect not only technical knowledge, but also genuine concern for his guests' welfare, an attitude that builds the kind of trust and loyalty that successful businesses require for long-term prosperity. The young monk joins the others for breakfast, his contemplative manner and thoughtful questions adding intellectual depth to the morning's conversations, while also demonstrating the kind of educated perspective that monastic training provides to those called to lives of learning and service. His presence reminds other guests that travel serves purposes beyond mere commercial gain or personal convenience, encompassing spiritual journeys and educational experiences that enrich understanding and promote personal growth. Sarah serves the morning meal with the cheerful efficiency that has already earned her recognition as someone whose own career in hospitality management seems both natural and inevitable. Her genuine interest in guests' stories and concerns combining with practical competence to create the kind of service experience that travelers remember long after they have returned to their homes and resumed their normal routines. The pilgrims accept their breakfast with expressions of gratitude that reflect both their religious commitment to recognizing divine provision in daily circumstances and their personal appreciation for the generous treatment they have received despite their limited ability to pay standard commercial rates for lodging and meals. Their presence adds moral dimension to the inn's community, serving as living reminders of values and priorities that transcend purely material considerations. The tinker shares stories of his recent travels while organizing his pack for departure, his accounts of distant villages and unusual customs providing entertainment and education for other guests, while also demonstrating the vital role that itinerant merchants play in connecting isolated communities with larger networks of trade, communication, and cultural exchange that help prevent rural areas from becoming completely cut off from developments in the wider world. As the morning progresses and departure preparations intensify, the inn begins its daily transformation from temporary home for overnight guests to way station for travelers resuming their journeys, with some guests checking out and others arriving to take their places in the continuing cycle of hospitality and service that defines the establishment's essential function and purpose. The wool merchant completes his preparations and settles his account with Martha, their financial transaction conducted with mutual respect and satisfaction, his payment reflecting not only the commercial value of services received, but also recognition of quality and consideration that exceeded mere minimum requirements. His expression of intent to return along this route, when business conditions permit, demonstrates the kind of customer loyalty that successful inns depend upon for sustainable operation. Thomas helps the merchant load his belongings and check his horse's condition one final time, their conversation touching on practical matters of route selection and timing, while also including personal elements that reflect the genuine friendship that can develop between people whose professional relationship extends over multiple interactions and shared experiences of road travels, challenges, and rewards. The pottery merchant's family takes longer to organize their departure. The children's excitement about continuing toward the fair balanced by some reluctance to leave the comfortable security they have found at the Red Boar, while their parents double-check their preparations and confirm final details of their route with both Thomas and Martha, whose combined knowledge helps ensure that their journey will proceed as smoothly as possible given the inherent uncertainties of medieval travel. Young will assist with loading the family's cart and checking their animal's harness and equipment, his careful attention to these details reflecting training that emphasizes preventing problems rather than merely responding to them after they occur. His thoroughness in these matters contributes to the inn's reputation for comprehensive service that addresses travelers' needs at every level, from basic accommodation to expert assistance with the practical aspects of journey management. The monk prepares for departure with the methodical care that characterizes monastic training, his few possessions organized efficiently in a simple pack that contains everything necessary for travel, while avoiding the excess baggage that can complicate movement and create unnecessary temptations for thieves who target travelers carrying obviously valuable goods. His travel philosophy emphasizes simplicity, self-reliance, and trust in divine providence, rather than elaborate preparation and security measures. The pilgrims organize their own departure with quiet efficiency, their experience of travel on limited resources having taught them to move quickly and efficiently while maintaining the contemplative attitudes appropriate to their spiritual purposes. Their leader expresses final gratitude to Martha and Thomas for hospitality that exceeded their expectations and demonstrated practical application of the charitable principles that their own religious commitment calls them to practice in their service to others. The tinker's departure happens most quickly, his nomadic lifestyle having developed habits of rapid movement and minimal ceremony, though he takes time to express genuine appreciation for the evening's companionship and entertainment, while also sharing final stories and observations that add to the store of information and amusement available to remaining guests and inn staff. As these various departures unfold throughout the mid-morning hours, new arrivals begin to appear in the courtyard, their timing calculated to reach the inn during daylight hours that allow proper evaluation of accommodations and services, while also providing adequate time for rest and recovery before continuing their own journeys. The constant cycle of arrival and departure creates the dynamic rhythm that characterizes successful inn life, ensuring variety and interest while also providing economic stability through consistent demand for services. Among the new arrivals is a group of merchants traveling together for security, their combined resources allowing them to afford better accommodations, while their shared experience provides mutual assistance in dealing with the challenges and opportunities that characterize commercial travel in the medieval world. Their leader, an experienced trader whose success has earned him recognition throughout the region, immediately begins negotiations with Martha regarding rooms and services, while also evaluating the inn's facilities and reputation based on observation and conversation with current guests. Another new arrival proves to be a messenger carrying official correspondence between distant administrative centers, his urgent mission requiring rapid travel, but also necessitating brief stops for rest and horse care that maintain his ability to complete his journey within prescribed time limits. His presence adds official dimension to the inn's clientele, while also providing access to news and information from governmental sources that might not otherwise reach this particular region. A family group arriving later in the morning includes elderly grandparents whose advanced age requires special consideration in terms of comfortable accommodations and modified travel schedules. Their adult children demonstrating the kind of family loyalty and responsibility that characterizes medieval social relationships, while also creating opportunities for the inn to provide services that address specific needs of travelers with particular requirements. Martha evaluates each new arrival's needs and preferences, her experienced eye quickly assessing both their ability to pay and their expectations regarding service levels, while also considering how their presence might affect the overall atmosphere and dynamics of the inn's community during their stay. Her management approach emphasizes creating environments where different types of guests can coexist comfortably, while each receives appropriate attention and service. Thomas examines the newcomer's animals and equipment, offering advice about care and maintenance, while also evaluating what services might be needed to ensure their continued travel capability. His reputation for honest dealing and expert knowledge makes his recommendations valuable to travelers who may be unfamiliar with local conditions or unsure about their animal's fitness for continued journey. Sarah welcomes the new guests with enthusiasm that reflects both personal friendliness and professional training. Her ability to make strangers feel immediately comfortable contributing significantly to first impressions that often determine whether travelers will choose to return to the Red Boar during future journeys through the region. Her natural talent for hospitality service suggests that she will eventually develop into an innkeeper capable of maintaining and extending the establishment's reputation for excellence. The main hall begins to fill with the complex mix of ongoing guests, new arrivals, and local visitors who stop by during daylight hours for meals, drinks, and social interaction that make the inn a center of community life, rather than merely a commercial enterprise serving transient customers. This blend of local and traveling clientele creates the kind of diverse social environment that provides education and entertainment for everyone involved, while also ensuring steady revenue streams that support the inn's continued operation. Conversations flow naturally between people from different backgrounds and locations, their shared presence at the Red Boar creating temporary connections that facilitate information exchange, business networking, and cultural learning that benefit all participants while also contributing to the broader processes of communication and cultural development that characterize medieval European society. These informal interactions often prove more valuable than formal commercial transactions in terms of their long-term impact on individual lives and community development. The morning meal service extends naturally into early afternoon as guests maintain flexible schedules that accommodate both travel requirements and social opportunities, with some choosing to depart immediately after eating while others linger to continue conversations or consider whether circumstances favor extending their stays rather than resuming journey immediately. This flexibility in timing reflects the reality that medieval travel involves constant adaptation to changing conditions and unexpected developments. Food preparation for the midday meal requires careful coordination between kitchen activities and service demands, as Martha and Sarah work together to ensure adequate supplies while also maintaining quality standards that satisfy guests accustomed to good food and prompt service. The inn's reputation depends partly on consistency in these fundamental areas, making attention to detail essential for maintaining competitive advantages in a market where travelers have increasing numbers of choices about where to spend their money. The merchant group that arrived during the morning proves to be traveling toward the same great fair that attracts the pottery merchant's family, creating natural opportunities for conversation about market conditions, security arrangements, and practical aspects of participating in large commercial gatherings that bring together traders from throughout the region. Their shared destination allows for discussion of possible travel cooperation that might benefit all parties through enhanced security and shared information. The official messenger, despite his urgent mission, takes time to share news and information that proves valuable to other guests whose own activities might be affected by political developments, economic changes, or security conditions in distant territories. His access to official communications provides insights that commercial travelers and ordinary citizens might not otherwise obtain, making his presence at the inn beneficial for the entire temporary community of guests. The elderly grandparents require special attention from inn staff, their physical limitations necessitating assistance with stairs, extra blankets against drafts, and modified meal preparation that accommodate dietary restrictions common among older travelers. Martha's willingness to provide these additional services without charging premium rates reflects both business wisdom and personal values that recognize the dignity and worth of all guests, regardless of their economic resources or physical capabilities. Young demonstrates his growing competence by successfully managing the increased animal care requirements that result from the morning's new arrivals. His ability to handle multiple horses and mules simultaneously, while maintaining high standards of grooming, feeding, and general care, earning recognition from Thomas and appreciation from the animal's owners. His development into a skilled stable hand contributes significantly to the inn's service capacity, while also preparing him for eventual independent career opportunities. The afternoon brings its own rhythm as guests settle into the comfortable routine that characterizes quality in life, some resting in their chambers, while others gather in the main hall for conversation, games, and the kind of relaxed social interaction that provides relief from the tensions and uncertainties that accompany travel through unfamiliar territory. The inn's atmosphere encourages both individual rest and community participation according to each guest's personal preferences and needs. Local visitors begin arriving for the evening meal and entertainment, their presence adding community connections and regional perspectives that enrich the inn's social environment while also providing additional revenue that helps support the establishment's operations and maintain its facilities at levels that satisfy the expectations of discriminating travelers who have choices about where to spend their money and time. Among these local visitors are several craftsmen whose skills contribute to the region's economy, including a blacksmith whose metalworking expertise makes him valuable for travelers needing repairs to equipment or shoes for their animals, and a weaver whose fine cloth demonstrates the quality of production that has made the area's textiles sought after in distant markets. Their presence provides opportunities for both practical assistance and educational conversation about techniques and markets that interest many of the inn's commercial guests. Martha coordinates the complex logistics of meal preparation for the expanded evening clientele, her experience enabling efficient resource allocation while maintaining quality standards that satisfy both regular customers and first-time visitors, whose impressions will influence their future patronage decisions. The evening meal represents the inn's opportunity to demonstrate its capabilities most fully, making careful attention to all details essential for maintaining reputation and customer satisfaction. The main hall gradually fills with the diverse mix of guests and local patrons that creates the Red Boar's distinctive evening atmosphere, voices blending in animated conversations that cover topics ranging from practical travel advice to philosophical discussions about the proper conduct of life in a world where individual choices can have far-reaching consequences for both personal success and community welfare. Thomas moves between the main hall and the stable yard, ensuring that all animals receive proper evening care, while also participating in conversations with guests whose questions about routes, conditions, and local services benefit from his extensive knowledge of the region and its resources. His dual role as stable manager and informal travel advisor demonstrates the comprehensive nature of service that distinguishes superior inns from merely adequate accommodations. Sarah serves the evening meal with practiced grace, her movements efficient, and her manner friendly as she ensures that everyone receives adequate portions of well-prepared food, while also contributing to conversations with observations and questions that demonstrate genuine interest in guest stories and experiences. Her growing expertise in hospitality service reflects both natural talent and careful training that prepare her for eventual leadership responsibilities. The atmosphere in the main hall becomes increasingly convivial as the evening progresses and ale loosens tongues, while firelight creates the kind of warm, intimate environment that encourages storytelling, singing, and the sort of human connection that transforms a mere business transaction into a memorable experience that guests will recall fondly long after they have returned to their normal routines and responsibilities. Peter begins his evening preparations for another night watch, checking equipment and reviewing security procedures, while also observing the guests to identify any potential problems or special concerns that might require attention during the dark hours ahead. His years of experience have taught him that prevention remains far more effective than reaction in maintaining the safe, secure environment that allows travelers to rest peacefully despite being far from home and familiar surroundings. As darkness settles over the inn and surrounding countryside, the Red Boar once again transforms into the beacon of warmth and hospitality that draws travelers from the uncertainties and dangers of night travel. Its lighted windows and welcoming atmosphere serving as symbols of civilization's triumph over chaos and isolation through cooperative effort and mutual aid. The evening's entertainment develops naturally from the diverse mix of guests and local patrons, their combined talents and experiences creating impromptu performances that might include everything from ballads sung by the traveling merchant to tales of distant lands related by the official messenger, while local craftsmen contribute their own stories of remarkable projects completed or unusual challenges overcome in their daily work serving the region's scattered communities. The merchant group's leader proves to be an accomplished storyteller whose accounts of trading adventures in distant markets captivate his audience with descriptions of exotic goods, strange customs, and the intricate negotiations required to conduct business across cultural and linguistic barriers that can make simple transactions into complex diplomatic exercises requiring patience, understanding, and considerable skill in reading human nature and motivation. The pottery merchant's children listen with wide eyes to these tales of adventure and opportunity, their imaginations fired by possibilities they had never previously considered, while their parents evaluate the practical information embedded in the stories, recognizing details that might prove useful in their own commercial activities or future travel planning. The evening's conversations provide education that no formal schooling could offer, demonstrating how inns serve as informal universities where real-world knowledge passes from experienced practitioners to eager students. The elderly grandparents contribute their own perspective to the evening's discussions, their long lives having provided them with historical context that helps younger listeners understand how current conditions compare with past experiences of similar challenges and opportunities. Their stories of changes they have witnessed during their lifetimes provide valuable insights into the cyclical nature of many seemingly new developments and the importance of maintaining long-term perspectives when evaluating temporary setbacks or apparent progress. The official messenger, despite his need to maintain discretion regarding the specific content of his correspondence, shares general observations about political and economic trends that affect everyone's daily lives. His access to information from administrative centers, providing insights into policy developments and official thinking that might influence future conditions for trade, travel, and general prosperity throughout the region. Local patrons add their own contributions to the evening's entertainment and education. Their intimate knowledge of the immediate area, complementing the broader perspectives provided by traveling guests to create comprehensive understanding of how local conditions relate to regional and national developments. Their stories of seasonal changes, agricultural prospects, and community developments help travelers adjust their expectations and plans to accommodate realities that might not be apparent to outsiders unfamiliar with local circumstances. Martha moves through the hall, ensuring that everyone has adequate food and drink, while also contributing to conversations with observations drawn from years of listening to travelers' stories, and comparing their accounts with her own experiences of how different events and trends have affected in operations over time. Her perspective provides valuable context for understanding how individual experiences relate to broader patterns of change and continuity. Thomas joins the evening's social activities after completing his animal care duties. His practical knowledge of travel conditions and route alternatives making him a sought-after advisor for guests planning their onward journeys, while his stories of particularly memorable guests and unusual incidents add color and humor to the evening's entertainment. His ability to combine practical information with amusing anecdotes demonstrates the communication skills that help successful innkeepers build lasting relationships with their clientele. Sarah participates in serving and conversation with growing confidence. Her natural friendliness and genuine curiosity about guests' experiences making her increasingly popular with visitors who appreciate her attention and interest in their stories. Her questions often reveal aspects of travel experiences that guests might not otherwise think to share, creating opportunities for deeper understanding and more meaningful connection between people from different backgrounds and circumstances. The firelight creates an intimate atmosphere that encourages openness and reflection, its dancing flames seeming to weave together the various conversations and stories into a unified experience that transforms individual accounts into collective memory, creating shared understanding that bridges differences in background, experience, and immediate purpose. The evening becomes more than mere entertainment. It develops into a kind of informal ceremony that celebrates human connection and mutual aid. Young Will appears briefly in the main hall after completing his stable duties, his presence welcomed by guests who have observed his careful work and appreciate his dedication to animal welfare, while his own shy contributions to the evening's conversations reveal intelligence and curiosity that suggest bright prospects for his future development. His relationship with the various guests demonstrates how in-life provides educational opportunities that extend far beyond formal apprenticeship arrangements. The blacksmith among the local visitors shares technical knowledge that proves immediately useful to several traveling merchants whose equipment has suffered wear or damage during their journeys. His expertise providing solutions to practical problems while also illustrating the interconnected nature of medieval economic life, where specialized knowledge and skills must be shared cooperatively to maintain the systems that support trade, travel, and general prosperity. The weaver's descriptions of textile production techniques and market conditions interest several guests whose own commercial activities involve fabric trade or require understanding of clothing and an equipment availability in different regions. Her detailed knowledge providing practical information, while also demonstrating the sophistication and complexity that characterize even seemingly simple aspects of medieval economic life. As the evening progresses toward its natural conclusion, guests begin to make their individual decisions about retiring to their chambers or continuing to participate in the social activities that show no signs of diminishing despite the advancing hour. The flexible, informal nature of inn life allows people to follow their own preferences regarding sleep schedules and social participation, creating an environment where different personality types and personal needs can coexist comfortably. Some guests drift away to their chambers gradually, their departure creating more intimate conversation groups among those who remain, while new topics emerge naturally from the changing dynamics of smaller gatherings, where different kinds of discussion become possible. The evening's social experience evolves organically according to the interests and energy levels of participants, rather than following any predetermined schedule or format. Martha begins her evening tasks of banking fires and securing the premises for another night, her movements quiet and efficient as she performs routines that ensure safety and comfort while avoiding disruption of ongoing social activities. Her ability to maintain necessary in operations while respecting guests' desire to extend their social time demonstrates the management skills that create successful hospitality experiences. Thomas makes his final check of the stable yard and animal quarters, ensuring that all guests' horses and mules have adequate feed, water, and shelter for the night ahead, while also confirming that gates and barriers are secure against potential problems that darkness might bring. His thoroughness in these matters reflects understanding that guests' peace of mind depends partly on confidence that their valuable animals receive proper care and protection. Peter assumes his night watch duties with the quiet competence that characterizes his long service to the inn, his presence providing security and reassurance that allows everyone to rest peacefully despite being far from their home communities and normal support systems. His vigilance represents one of the most important but least visible services that successful inns provide to their clientele. The main hall gradually quiets as the last conversations wind down, and final guests make their way upstairs to chambers where comfortable beds and warm blankets await their tired bodies and travel-weary minds. The transition from social activity to individual rest happens naturally, without formal announcement or artificial deadline, reflecting the organic rhythms that characterize life at well-managed establishments. Sarah completes her evening tasks of cleaning and organizing, while also ensuring that late retiring guests have everything they need for comfortable sleep. Her attention to detail and genuine concern for guest welfare contributing significantly to the overall quality of service that distinguishes the Red Boar from other available accommodations in the region. The inn settles into its nighttime quiet with the satisfaction that comes from another successful day of hospitality and service, its various inhabitants resting peacefully in the knowledge that their individual contributions have combined to create experiences that benefit everyone involved, while also maintaining the traditions and standards that make such establishments valuable to the communities they serve. Outside, the medieval night continues its ancient cycles of darkness and sound, wildlife and weather, while inside the inn, human civilization demonstrates its capacity to create islands of warmth, safety, and community that provide refuge from uncertainty and testimony to the power of cooperative effort and mutual care. The Red Boar stands as proof that individual initiative, when guided by principles of service and hospitality, can create institutions that serve both immediate practical needs and longer-term social purposes. The day that began with dawn's first light now concludes with the peaceful rest of satisfied guests and fulfilled hosts, each having contributed to and benefited from the complex web of relationships and services that transform a simple commercial transaction into a meaningful human experience. Tomorrow will bring new challenges and opportunities, new guests with their own stories and needs, new chances to demonstrate that hospitality represents more than mere business activity, but rather constitutes one of civilization's highest expressions of care for fellow human beings. In the quiet darkness that now envelops the Red Boar Inn, the building itself seems to rest with the contentment that comes from purposes well served and duties faithfully discharged. Its sturdy walls and solid foundations providing shelter, not just for individual bodies, but for the larger human project of creating community and connection across the differences that might otherwise divide people into isolated individuals struggling alone against forces too large for any single person to manage successfully. The inn's daily cycle thus completes itself with the promise that tomorrow will bring renewal of the same essential activities and opportunities, ensuring that the Red Boar will continue to serve its vital function as a place where strangers become friends, where individual journeys intersect with larger purposes, and where the ancient human tradition of hospitality finds expression in practical service that honors both giver and receiver, while strengthening the bonds that hold civilization together against all the forces that might otherwise tear it apart. And so the day ends as it began, with quiet confidence in the value of work well done and service freely given, surrounded by the peaceful sounds of a world at rest, but ready to begin again with dawn's return, when the cycle will continue with fresh energy and renewed dedication to the timeless principles that make places like the Red Boar Inn essential elements in the great human enterprise of building communities that serve both individual needs and collective purposes through the simple but profound act of welcoming strangers as honored guests, deserving of the best that human ingenuity and compassion can provide.